You use the internet on a daily basis, and chances are you do. You probably don't put much thought into cybersecurity. You know, your network connections, the pages you visit, the files you download. You should be thinking about these all the time. Welcome to And Security for All. Your host is Kim Hakim. We're here to help you understand, in general terms, how and why your cybersecurity should be kept in check. Now, here is Kim Hakim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Hakim. Welcome to another episode of And Security for All. And I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of technical issues.
How and why your cybersecurity should be kept in check. Now,
Sorry about that, everyone. Welcome again. I'm Kim Hakim, and welcome to another episode of And Security for All. Very excited to be here. It's been a while. We took a little bit of a pause this summer, but we thought it would be appropriate to kick off our relaunch of the podcast on the first day of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. If you're tuning into this, chances are you're not a newbie. You could be a newbie, but I assume you're probably in the trenches. You're securing systems, defending networks, writing policies, running the teams, are running red teams, or maybe hunting down threats before they hit the headlines. Look, we all know the stats. We're not going to sit here and talk about all the breaches that we've seen this year. The breaches are up. The attacks are expanding. AI is crazy. It's pushing things forward, but it's also making things easier for the attackers. But this month isn't just about repeating everything. It's about owning the mission. And every October it comes and goes. And, you know, what changes in October? Hopefully more awareness. We should always have security as the forefront of all of our thoughts. But as cyber practitioners, it means more than awareness. It means accountability, collaboration, leadership, everything that you guys all see from our shows. For those that you know, I'm the CEO of FutureCon Events. We put on cybersecurity events all over North America. We were just in the heart of America. We were in Des Moines last week. We're going to Columbus, Ohio next week. We're all over Phoenix, Boston, Atlanta, Nashville. So check out FutureCon Events, because if you can't be there in person, we stream all of our events and we bring some pretty amazing leaders in the industry. But because this is Awareness Month, you know, it's not just for the general public. It starts with us. You all are the ones building the controls, building the incident response plans, securing code, pushing the patches, monitoring the newcomers, and still trying to convince management to fund all the backups. So today, day one, I'm calling on all of us. This month just isn't for users, it's your voice. So today, joining me, I have my friend and guest host for the past couple of years, Jonathan Kimmit, who's the CISO over at Alias Cybersecurity, and he was the former CISO for like 20 years at the University of Tulsa. So Jonathan brings a ton of experience in the industry. I'm excited to have him back on the mic. How are you, Jonathan?
I am doing very well, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to have you. It's exciting to relaunch the podcast, and you know, time flies, and I feel like this summer was just so busy, and
Yeah.
you had a lot of exciting things going on. You went out to DEF CON. Tell us a
Yep.
little bit about that. I feel like maybe that might be a good place. I have so much to talk to you about, but maybe that would be a good place to just let us know what you walked away from when you left DEF CON.
You know, DEF CON is an experience. It's huge. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of walking, but it's an experience, and I really encourage people. It's not really designed for CISOs specifically. I mean, it is that very hacker mindset, hacker community. But it's really important for, I think, CISOs to go out there and see that environment and to meet those people and engage, because honestly, the tactics that people are using at a DEF CON is exactly what we are defending against. And if we don't know how the attacks are coming in, there's really no way for us to defend against it. So, you know, kind of tying it back to computer security awareness, when we go out and we talk about security awareness to our employees in our community, we're trying to explain to them what they need to do to protect themselves. Well, DEF CON for me is what I need for my own security awareness. That's my computer security awareness for training for me, so I can go out there and learn and grow and get better at my job. And so it's a long few days, especially if you do Black Hat, you do B-sides, and you do DEF CON. It can be a long week and a half. But it's worth it. I mean, I think that it's certainly a bucket list item for a lot of people. I encourage CISOs to go out there and stop thinking about being a CISO for a couple of days. Think about being the attacker and what are those attackers doing and how are they doing it? That way you can go and implement those things back in your environment. I think that's critical.
I mentioned when I was, kind of just came on about AI and how fast AI is evolving, but it's a two-sided thing, as we all know. So let's just kind of keeping AI in the back of our thoughts, looking at Cybersecurity Month, how can each of us level up our awareness by being intentional about our security posture, no matter what your role is? I think Jonathan may have froze on us.
Oh, that's a hard question. I really think that for us to be, well, I mean, there's two parts. There is the cybersecurity awareness to the end user, which is kind of where Cybersecurity Awareness Month came from. Is let's get the training in, let's get people aware, and I've changed it up over the years, and we can talk about that later in terms of the topics that I cover. But you're absolutely right. I really think that there should be an opportunity for that internal security awareness. What is it we're actually seeing? Kind of a reset. I love doing tabletops. I have taught tabletops. I have done tabletops. And what I really like about them is that opportunity for people to see something different. They get exposed to a different kind of attack or a different kind of mindset whenever they're going through that tabletop. And I think that is a perfect example of cybersecurity awareness. And this is a perfect time to do it. We always get caught up in let's do the training, let's do monthly newsletters or a weekly newsletter during the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. But there's also an opportunity for us to learn, as cybersecurity professionals, very intentionally go out. Now, one of the things that I've always done is I might introduce something new during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, such as the moment with security or moment with cybersecurity. It was just a little newsletter thing that I did back at the University of Tulsa. And it was just an opportunity for me to give some information out. Well, that turned into a weekly newsletter that month and then a monthly newsletter after that. And it was probably 6 months later that IT says, "Hey, this is great. You got a lot. Let's add some IT stuff." And then it became an IT newsletter as opposed to a cybersecurity newsletter. But you start something in Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October that you carry forward. And that makes a huge difference because if you can I mean, we're busy. We're all busy, but this month gives us the ability to focus on something. Focus on ourselves, focus on our own training, focus on the training that we can give out to others. And hopefully we can build new processes and build new things that we carry on through the whole year. If we're only doing these things once a year during this month, we're failing at security.
Well, I think people like you are not only doing things for this month, and probably the viewers are not doing things for just this month.
Right.
But where, time flies. It's
Sure.
October. It's crazy that we're almost at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so easy to just let the days go by that, you just did a little briefing with me and my team, when we were having some just trying to make sure that our security posture was in check, and just the little things that you talked about, that we need to do. So what would be some of maybe, like a day one challenge, since it is October 1st, what would be some of the challenges you'd want to to advise our listeners?
The thing I always tell everyone is look at what the attacks are doing. What are the attacks you're seeing in your environment? Every environment is different. And if you don't know what kind of attacks are coming in, you don't know how to defend against them. So I would say day one, pull the team together. You've got a team, maybe, hopefully, that is doing your SOC. You've got a team doing help desk. You've got a team doing system support or firewall monitoring or whatever it may be. Pull everyone together and say, hey, what is our current attacks? Because that, I think, makes a huge difference in how you step forward. It might be that your attacks are coming in and they are strictly social. You've got people trying to get in through email, so scams and phishing and things. You got people calling in and using deep fake voices or whatever they need to do to call you through the phishing side. Maybe you got people trying to get into your environment, physically get into your environment. If those are your biggest risks right now, well, maybe plan the rest of the month in terms of your events and the things that you're doing around focusing on those. However, let's say most of your attacks are coming in over the network through vulnerabilities. Then maybe as a group, as a team, we go, okay, well, let's take a look at our change management. Let's take a look at our patch management. Let's take a look at how are we monitoring our threat levels, maybe threat intel coming in, and how are we blocking things or whatever it is. So we need to look at what is actually happening in our environment, and then you can plan the rest of the month from that. Now, hopefully you're doing that more than just, once a month, but sometimes we get lost in our daily jobs. I mean, if you look at my calendar right now, I mean, it's full up, and I don't always set aside the time to do those one-off things. I do, but maybe doing it once a month is the most I can do just because I'm busy. Well, maybe we do it in October and say, okay, man, I need to do this. I need to get the team together once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, whatever it is. You start those new processes. And again, it's a perfect opportunity. If you know what's coming in, you can figure out how to defend against it.
How do you think cybersecurity has evolved? Like maybe let's just start from when COVID hit. So maybe over like the last 5 years, as a leader, as a CISO, do you think that the culture of security is changing where it's not just dictated that you must do this? What positive changes are you seeing?
I think people in the middle of COVID and towards the end of COVID, people started seeing different risks, risks they had never really seen before. We had people at home. We've moved a lot of services to the cloud. We were moving off of old services, going from on-prem SharePoint, on-prem Exchange. We had moved to 365. We had moved to cloud services. We had moved to voice over IP phones instead of the old telephone sets. We saw a lot of things change. Now, with those things changing came a new set of security controls that we were able to help utilize. So I think the organizations very quickly, because when they moved into those new environments, we had so much more information available to us. And at that point, we had more controls. So they got to see that we have this new environment that we had never dealt with before, but we also had new tools. And those new tools gave us new controls that we could implement and new knowledge that we can get from it, metrics and whatever. And I think that made a huge difference. I can tell you now when I go into clients and I see they still have an on-prem Exchange server, I'm just like, I don't have the tools that we're using everywhere else. I can't jump into security on Microsoft and go look at things. And there's some stuff you just can't do in the old systems, in the old environment. So I think that's really what I saw change is COVID kind of forced us into new technology. But with that new technology, we got so much more control and granular control of the environments that we could do some pretty cool things in terms of security.
So this next question, because I just had a list of questions that I wanted to go over, but this one I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to make a comment on it before I get your opinion.
Sure.
And it's interesting with security. Do you think that the security training programs out there right now are keeping up with the fast pace of real world threats people face? And before I hear what you have to say, I have to say, I have seen a big swing in our speakers. Like we do the 30 events all over the country, and we have our keynote speaker that's usually a CISO from the enterprise, sector, and then we have our panel that is all CISOs again from that side. But then we have 8 other speakers that are from the vendor side. And the speakers that they are sending are phenomenal. And
Mhm.
I kudos to my sponsors, because a long time ago, we had to be on top of those speakers to make sure that they were providing up-to-date training, not pitching products. Nobody wants to go to a conference and hear
Yep.
a product pitch. So from where I stand on my side, I feel like the speakers, there's a lot of talk about AI. I mean, there's a lot of repetitiveness, but they all have a different, they all, like Sophos right now has been speaking for us, and they're doing a presentation on how to be a cyber criminal,
Yep.
so it's interesting listening to our speakers. But now let's go back to some of the training programs that maybe the practitioners have to qualify for to get, their certifications. Do you think those programs are keeping up with what's happening in the industry?
I think they are, but I don't think industry is keeping up with the training programs, honestly. I think we've got great training out there. I myself have done training. I've done training. I did a huge AI training about the workforce. And I've had a lot of people reach out on LinkedIn, saying that they enjoyed that training and they got a lot out of it. But when I look at them, I looked at who they are in terms of their positions. It's like, okay, how do we get more of those people doing that training? So yes, I think that the training is great. We have a lot of experience out there doing the training, but I think there's still a lot of industry that's not doing the training. I support a lot of other CISOs. It's one of the things that I do. I am a vCISO for people, but I've got CISOs that I support, just giving them, but whether it be expertise or extra hands or just a sounding board. And what I'm finding is not all of these CISOs are even going out and getting training, whether they don't, they don't have resources, the company doesn't have funding or whatever, or they don't have time. So they're not going out and getting this training that's available to us. I mean, whenever I see something new come up, I'll tell you, I'm kind of OCD about it. Actually, I get out there and I learn and I do trainings, I get books, I do whatever because I want to stay on top of it for my customers, but I also want to stay on top of it so I can implement new controls. I jumped on AI when AI, was starting to become a big thing in terms of the talks, and several years later, I'm teaching AI security for the workforce. So it's one of those things that you've got to stay on top of it. And we do have training. I remember, so when I was at FutureCon event in Kansas City, I loved it. I got to just sit there and absorb, what these speakers were saying. And I don't get to do that often during conferences. I'm usually either running the conference or I'm speaking and I'm going back and forth, but I love coming to FutureCon because I get to absorb. That's my time to bring in that information, and it's great. I would love to have more people there because I think that that's critically important. You have to keep growing in our profession. The attackers are growing. They're growing because they think it's fun. They're coming up with new attacks and new tactics. But we've got to do the same thing. We've got to keep growing to make sure that we are staying on top of the threats out there.
Yeah, that's a a lot, to continue to grow and stay on top of it, which kind of takes me into, just being mindful of the security posture that you have in place and moving from being reactive to proactive thinking.
Yes.
And how, I mean, how much, if you had to put like, if you had to take, 1 through 10 companies, how many do you think are still in the reactive phase instead of the proactive phase?
Oh, well, okay. So, and that's kind of I've talked about this before. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it, I'm going to qualify it. When we're talking about all of the companies, and I'm talking about everything from small to medium business all the way up to Fortune 50, I would say maybe 2% are actually not reactive, because we have so many organizations out there. And it's not just organizations. We have municipalities, we have cities, we have states, we have mom and pop shops, all the way up to multi-billion-dollar international companies. But honestly, there's only a handful of them that are really at a level that they have the resources, they have the staff, and they have the time, and you have to have all three to really be aggressive with security and to not be reactive. Now, I'll tell you what usually helps push people over that edge is having an incident. They have an incident, and money gets freed up, time gets freed up, resources get freed up to make sure they don't have this incident in the future. I wish it wasn't that way. I work with organizations all the time, and here's the thing: it's not that they don't want to be; it's that they can't be for one reason or another. I had a client just the other day who he emailed me and says, "Hey, is this thing against blah 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 compliance?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is. You need to do this, this, and this." And he says, "Well, we can't. That's just not going to, is there any other options? Because whatever part of the organization won't do that thing." And it's not that they don't want to be, they know it, they see it, they feel it, but it's really hard to change culture, and it's really hard to change the organization. So I think that when we're talking about all of the organizations, maybe 1, 2, maybe 3%. It's on the lower level, just because we're seeing all these organizations. I said this, I guess it was a couple of months ago. I might even said it to you, but right now I feel like those organizations that are going to have security teams, and those that aren't are not going to get them. We kind of hit this the first, let's say 15 years ago, you had people thinking about getting security. And then you had people get security programs. They got a CISO, they put in a SOC, they did all these things. I think we're kind of at that end point of those organizations that are going to build a security program or build a security team. They have done it. Those that have not probably are not. So that's where they need to rely on other expertise. Maybe they rely on services from CISA, whatever it may be. I wish we had more. I would love to have every organization have a CISO, a trained CISO that had the time and the resources to be able to do the job. That's just not reality.
It's not, and it's amazing. Like I can't remember the company, and I wouldn't say the company's name anyway, but it was a pretty large company out of Michigan. I want to say a car dealer, probably
Mhm.
something with automotive. And one of their employees was at our bourbon event out at RSA, and I was like, "Hey, who's your CISO? I'd love to get your CISO to be our speaker." He was their IT director. He's like, "It's me,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was a huge company, and I was just like, "Wow." I don't understand that. I mean, does it
It's
take it, is that again, it's going to take something bad to happen before they move forward building that out?
maybe, it's really, really hard. In fact, the book I'm writing is for that person. How do you be a CISO when you're not a CISO. It's a manual, it's a field manual of here's all the things you have to do, because there's so many times you have a CTO, you might have a director of IT, you might have a CIO. They are a CISO. Now, there are certain aspects of a CISO. They might be the political side of being a CISO, or they might even be the technical side. But to be a CISO, you kind of have to do all those pieces and know. And what I'm finding is people don't know that. I was talking to someone. I was doing a vendor third party agreement with a vendor, and I was looking through their HECVAT, and I saw that their CIO and their CISO was the same person. So I called them up, and I was just talking with them, and I asked them, I was like, hey, what do you do as CISO? And he goes, well, I try to make sure we do our passwords correctly, and trying to make sure that we fill out the paperwork and things correctly, and I make sure our firewall's taken care of. I was like, oh, okay. What about this and this and this and this? And he goes, yeah, I don't do that. It's like, oh, okay. Well, we did not go with that vendor. We went to a different vendor, but it's kind of scary. Now, I'm not saying that a CIO or a CTO can't be a good security professional, but I'll tell you, it's really hard to be good at both. I mean, the skill set for a CIO, the skill set for a CTO, and a skill set for a CIO or a CISO, they're all different. And mostly it's going to be time. How much time do you have to devote to that one thing? It's hard. It's just really hard for organizations when they have to do it that way.
I guess it just comes down to funding and,
Yeah.
the priorities. And before I go down the AI road, I want to, we probably have about 15 minutes left, and I want to walk away today giving listeners some concrete, takeaways. Let's talk about some practical, prompts that you can advise, our listeners of what they can do, not just listening to us and hearing these stories, but what are some things that they can apply in their world? Like, what can they do to improve their cyber hygiene today?
Well, if we're talking about prompts, one of the things that I always tell people to really think about is they have to have threat intel. I said in the beginning, they have to know what's happening out there. Some of the best prompts that I've seen a lot of people use here recently is just gathering threat intel. There was I helped write a prompt for someone who was doing so I do threat intel for my clients. And this person was like, I want to do the same thing. I don't know all these resources. Like, okay, wait, stop. Let's go to AI. Let's build this prompt. And it was very simple. It was choose me 5 stories of cybersecurity in the industry of blah. I'm going to say healthcare, just as an example. So 5 cybersecurity stories in healthcare that I can summarize and give to my staff. And that's a very simple prompt. And it'll go out there and it'll find cybersecurity. Maybe you put a time limit, within the last 2 weeks, and it'll go and get it. And you can ask it to summarize it and give you talking points, and then give you an action list. Please give me a checklist of things I need to think about to defend against this threat. Let AI help you with that. It can generate the list, and you may look through and say, yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, well, let's ask it again. Let's do a different prompt. But I think that one there, thinking about cybersecurity awareness, getting information from AI, just ask it to help you. I'm always very polite to the AI. It's like, please give me 5 stories within the last 2 weeks on cybersecurity and privacy within the healthcare environment or industry. Please summarize and give me 5 things that I can use as a checklist to make sure that I'm doing things well. And it'll spit you out a checklist. Those sorts of things I think are really, really useful, because I've got somewhere on one of these tabs here, I've got a list of bookmarks that I go to every day, and I look at the stories. And I try to pull those stories that are relevant to my clients and give those to them, summarize them and give it to them. You can do the same thing for your own organization. Maybe you don't know what publications are out there. You don't know what news articles to go get or threat intel to get. Ask AI and it can help you with those.
Yeah, I mean, I completely rely on AI for everything now. I mean, not everything, but just even coming up with some of the questions that we should talk about for Cybersecurity Month.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that it gave me that I would have never thought to talk to you about, or just it's such a great resource. I mean, for anything. I mean, here's
Yes.
just a simple one, and it has nothing to do with security. I was online shopping and my daughter's like, you should go to ChatGPT and see if that store has any discount codes. And, I
Yeah.
went and
Yeah.
they did, and I
Yeah.
found like 20% off. So I feel like chat. And it's funny because my younger daughter's like, I don't know why you use ChatGPT all the time. It's just cheating. And I'm like, it is not cheating. It helps everything,
Here's the thing though. We said the same thing about doing that when the internet became a thing in the early 2000s. Instead of going to the library and doing a search through the card catalog, and you go to the internet and you do a search and say, oh, that's cheating. Well, yeah, it's more efficient.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I use AI. I teach people to use it. I teach people to use it responsibly. Be careful what you're asking and what you're using it for, but it's a tool, and let's use the tool as is designed. And my dad, of course, growing up, everything was a hammer. If I needed to hit something, if I had a wrench, by God, that was my hammer. Yeah, if I needed a finishing hammer and all I had was a sledgehammer, I was just kind of careful. So you use things just because that's what's in front of you. But if you pick the right tool, then you get much better results. So you pick a good AI, you learn to use it, you get good prompts out of it. You can do some really amazing things.
Well, I don't want to favor one tool over another, but I mean, I still go back to this basic one, the very first one that was out there. And,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't even log in, I just log off and just say, can you fix this email
Sure.
for me?
Sure.
And that's it, so everything
I
becomes much more polished. So,
Well, and I use a lot of different ones, especially with my clients using different ones, and I try to stay up on them. But
mhm.
what's interesting is the training programs I build for how to use an AI, it works on almost every single one of them. It's again, you have to. I mean, if you got an email back, if you said, "Here, please polish this email," and it came back and there was words missing and there was everything was, you'd read it and go, "Oh, that didn't make any sense." You have to still read it. I mean, you still have to make sure it sounds good, but it also makes things a lot more efficient.
You
It
definitely have to fact check it and not assume
absolutely.
that it knows everything, because we just found a little mistake that I was talking to you pre-show. But
Mhm.
let me ask you, do you think, going back to like um giving our listeners something to take away and talking about practical prompts, do you think that there's controls that are skipped or underutilized that can make a big impact in organizations?
Within the organization, absolutely. I think people are, number one, they're getting themselves into compliance trouble because they're using tools that are not authorized. Maybe they're using a tool that doesn't have a BA, a business associate agreement if they were in healthcare. Yes, they're using things they may not should be using. But then there's also I always say this. There are three things that I always tell people who are using an AI within the environment. Number one, you've still got to have good change management. So if you take code from an AI and you're going to use it in production, make sure someone reviews it. Make sure you go through change management with it. Number two, are you allowed to put data up there? Just like any other data storage, the same thing we ran into when we were doing online storage years ago, the OneDrives and the Box and the Dropbox. Can you put data up there? And then number three, does it sound right? Is, from a communications perspective, a PR perspective, if you're asking it to, well, if you ask it to build a picture and it's got six fingers on one hand, probably not a good picture to put out there, but everyone's going to know. But if you put the controls in place, make sure you're using the right tool, you put the right data in it, and you have the right checks and balances on it. Again, it's a tool, and let's use the tools as they're designed.
So let's talk about looking forward, and especially like to our next generation of cyber practitioners. What are some skills and mindsets do you think that they need to focus on? And you as a leader being proactive, what can you help them with?
Number one, they're not going to know an environment not with AI. You have my kids right now, which are teenagers now. They don't know an environment without the internet. So you skip ahead 5-10 years, you're going to have people in the organization that did not know life before AI. So it's the problem for us right now doing the transition to AI that we're running into these issues. But people who are growing up with it, they're not going to know the difference. It's going to be a tool for them. They're going to use it all the time. So what you have to do is number one, you have to know it. I mean, you have to go out there and learn. You have to accept it. There's organizations out there that says, we will not use AI. Okay, well, if you say that, then there's a whole bunch of products you can't use. Grammarly, you can't use most EDRs, you can't use Office 365, you can't use Google Maps, you can't do all these different things because those all have AI in them. So accept it. We are going to use it. Let's use it the right way. Let's assume people are going to use it and then make sure they're doing it right instead of trying to hide it. I was talking to someone the other day, of course, higher ed is in my past, and it's near and dear to my heart. But I told a faculty member that gone are the days, I believe, that you should ask a student to write a 5-page paper, 20-page paper, 50-page paper, 100-page paper, whatever. They're going to go to AI and write it. Is that really a realistic expectation for that student? Does that give them realistic um, uh, exposure of their skills? I mean, does it really show you what they're capable of doing, or should we go to a different way to evaluate their skill sets? Instead of, I remember writing. I lost a paper in the middle of the night one time. We were fortunate we had 24-hour lab, so I drove up an hour to Tulsa to go to the computer lab, and I started rewriting my paper from scratch. I just lost it. It was on a laptop. Laptop died, and I had to rewrite it. And I got a B on it or whatever it was. But I wrote from like 3 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock that morning. I started from scratch. I had my notes. I started from scratch. I didn't have AI to help me. I didn't have the internet as we know it today. And I just had to do it. And I think that was a fair representation of what I could do. But nowadays, I had someone here recently who asked me to give them like 10,000 words. It's like, okay. And we'll go to AI and, here's I come up with an outline in my head and I throw it in there. It's like, please write me this. And I took it to him. I was like, here's your 10,000 words. He goes, did you use AI? I was like, sure I did. Yeah, you asked me for something obnoxious, I give you, the results. So I was like, but can you read it and understand it? And he read through, he goes, oh yeah, I mean, this is good. I mean, I had to fix it and I had to go through and change stuff and put it, but that's just how it's going to be. So we have to change. This generation we have as leadership right now, we have to change and understand that they're going to use these tools. Let's use that to our advantage. Let's figure out how to make it to where I know they're going to use it. That's fine. I'm going to put my checks and balances in to make sure they use it right.
So how can we do a better job at mentoring and retaining talent in this field? Because we know that is a big issue, which I still don't understand because there's so many people out there looking for jobs. And with my world and the platform I'm on, I have so many people that come to me and,
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to make more connections with someone over here when I know someone over here is looking for employees. I feel like it's a mess right now. That's my opinion.
I agree with you, and I think it's broken, honestly. The application processes, some of them are because of the applicant tracking systems, or the application tracking systems. I read an article, I guess it was last week, that was about a person who wasn't getting anybody to apply for the job that he needed. So he took it upon himself to apply himself. He took his resume and he applied, changed the name, and it got rejected. And he's like, why did I get rejected for this job? I did the job. So I think there's a lot of stuff broken. I tell people all the time that it's one of the reasons why I created the Oklahoma Cybersecurity Discord, just this community of people talking to one another, because I would much rather know people and engage people and hire the right person than worry about, if I put a job, here's the way it works. If I put a job online, as I'm needing a SOC analyst, or I'm going to get hundreds of applications, and they're going to be from all over the world. They're going to be people from remote. There's going to be people from India. There's going to be people all over. It's going to be really hard to get through all that. But if I walk up to the Discord channel and say, hey, everyone, I'm looking for this skill set from these people. It's going to be an on-site SOC. I had 4 people apply. 5. I had 5 people apply, and I knew them. I engaged them. I knew who could do the job and who couldn't do the job, who wanted the job, who was really looking for the job. That makes a huge difference. So here's what I would say. If you're applying the normal way, you apply, you put your resume in. I hate to say it like this, but I think you're at a disadvantage, because we have thousands of people who are looking for jobs right now, and they just can't get through them. And the applicant tracking systems are really difficult there's ways you can bypass them and all kinds of different things, but that's hard. I want people to go ask AI, how do I engage a hiring manager? How do I engage HR? And let it give you some tips on how to do that. But one of the things I always tell people, call them, talk to them, engage them. If I'll tell them this, if the first time I am talking to you is at the applicant level, when you have applied for a job, that's too late. But if I've seen you we have events here called Tech on Taps, and conferences and whatever. But if I've seen you at every Tech on Tap and you have come up and you're shaking my hand, you says, hey, if you ever have any jobs open, just let me know. I'm really interested. It's like, hey, great. Let's go sit down and talk, and we sit and we chat. I get to know people. I think that's where the secret is right now, because there's so much stuff that's broken. Now, it is really hard to do that. We don't have enough events to get everybody out there. And a lot of us are introverts. You and I have talked about that before, being an introvert in this environment. But sometimes you have to kind of step out of that and be that extrovert to go and talk to people and engage people. We interviewed this guy. I really liked him. And he emails me back after the interview. He says, man, I am so sorry. I just got really nervous. And I'm like, listen, we all understand that. I don't care about your nerves. Absolutely, it's nervous going in an interview. If you work through it, if you get better and you have the skill set, I'm going to hire you anyway. I get nervous in interviews. So that engagement, I was talking to him and it became a really good experience. And I had one of the applicants come back and goes, man, this has been the best experience I've ever had in applying for jobs. Even if I don't get the job, this has been a great experience. And I was very proud of that fact that we made it good. We made that process good. But we threw out all the stuff, we threw out the application process. We threw out, I asked him, I was on the phone with him. I says, hey, I need you to send me your resume. Don't worry about changing it to fit the job. Tell me where you've worked. Give me that. Give me a generic resume. Don't worry about a cover letter. I know you. Give it to me so I can hand it to my hiring manager and get them to interview. And he was like, but I want to do this. I was like, you don't have to. You don't have to do that stuff with me. Just let's get this. If we all did that, if we all engaged the community and the industry together, man, I think we could do a lot of good.
I agree with you. And if there's somebody out there that knows the answer to this, because, I'm all over the country, every event, there's probably 300 to 400 people when you're talking about our virtual side of things. And I have keynotes that have lost their CISO role, and they'll come to me and they'll say, I see you're connected with so-and-so. Can you hook me up with them? Or I'll have CISOs are not even CISOs. It could be anyone that will message me and say, hey, we're hiring. Can you reshare this? So I try to do it as much as I can, but I'm only making a little tiny dent. And if I could use my platform more because I have a lot of followers, if I could help, I would. So if there's anyone out there that has any suggestion or advice how I can help, please DM me and let me know. But we are pretty much out of time, but I have one last question for you.
Sure.
What gives you hope about where cybersecurity is headed?
We have good people. I'll tell you, the people we have in the industry. I've been on the help desk side. I've been on the IT side. The security side is just, the people we have is so great. When, again, I'm going to go back to FutureCon events. I love going up there. I love sitting at the table and just talking to the whole table. I may not know them. They may not know me, but we can sit there and we can talk and we can chat and we can engage. We have such good people in the environment. They're wanting to do good things. I'm writing an article right now, and it's CISO. Is it your job or is it your purpose? I really feel like that we have so many people in the security industry that this is their purpose, not just their job. They're trying to make a difference. They're trying to make things better. And that is huge. That is huge in any industry. That's why I love it so much. That's why I do the things that I do, because it's a group of people that really, they want to do good things. And I want to be right there beside them.
Well, Jonathan Kimmit, he's the CISO. Is it Alias?
Yep.
Okay, finally, I got that right. Alias Cybersecurity. He is definitely a role model in the industry. And thank you so much. You'll be seeing more of Jonathan, hopefully, because he helps me out when I'm traveling. We've changed our time. Everyone out there, we used to do this podcast on Fridays. We've moved it to Tuesdays because that makes more sense, because our events are usually on Wednesdays and Thursdays. This week is a down week, but we will see you all next week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can catch this podcast on any place that you like to listen to your favorite podcast. We look forward to seeing you. So everyone, have a great week. Stay safe, stay secure, and be a leader for Cybersecurity Month. Thanks, everyone.